Asterisk. She wasn't looking for hope. Just enough coin to keep her baby breathing till morning. Asterisk. Rain sheeted down like judgment from heaven, soaking the muddy backroads of Shreveport, Louisiana. In 1871, the war was over, but its echoes still clung to the wood and soil like a bad smell. A broken wagon leaned uselessly in the muck, its wheels sunk deep in the sucking earth. Canvas flapped violently in the wind, nearly torn from its frame. Inside the battered wagon, a woman cradled a bundle of cloth against her chest. Sarah Walker, 24, her dress thin as prayer and twice as worn, rocked gently, humming what little she remembered of her mother's lullaby. It was drowned beneath the wind. In her arms, her baby, asterisk, asterisk, Ella, asterisk, asterisk, wheezed. The child's lips were pale and dry, cheeks sunken. Fever had taken hold. Sarah's hand trembled as she brushed the baby's forehead, burning, a fire no rain could touch. She pressed a final kiss to her daughter's damp curls, then stepped down into the storm, clutching Ella close beneath the folds of her shawl. Each step toward town splashed brown water up her legs. The night was cruel, the kind that made you wonder if God had packed up and left with the last blue coat. She reached the back door of the Three Pines Saloon, its windows glowing gold with heat and laughter. She raised a fist and knocked 3 times. Then again, harder. The door opened a crack, just enough for the barkeep's eyes to meet hers. He didn't ask questions, just frowned. "We don't serve your kind back here," he said flatly. "Please," Sarah begged, her voice barely holding steady. "She's got fever. She ain't eaten in 2 days. I can clean, wash dishes. Just some milk and laudanum. I'll work." The man's eyes flicked to the bundle in her arms. Something softened for the briefest moment. Then the door slammed shut. She stood motionless in the rain, the echo of that slam ringing louder than thunder. Ella whimpered, her cry a frail sound barely escaping the storm. Sarah turned and stumbled away. She tried the general store next. Its front was lit but cold. Inside, the clerk behind the counter watched her enter with eyes that made her spine stiffen. She approached him slowly, cradling her child tighter. "I don't have money," she said, voice cracking, "but I can work for trade. Just need some milk. Medicine, too, if you got any." "We're not a charity." The man spat, not even glancing up. "Town's already full of hungry mouths. Try somewhere else. Please." A woman nearby, older, wearing gloves too fine for this place, whispered just loud enough. She should have stayed on the plantation where she belonged. The shame cut deep, but Sarah didn't flinch. She turned around, chin high, and walked back into the dark. But inside, something began to slip. That baby. She hadn't cried proper in hours. Just shallow breaths and occasional dry cough. Sarah knew what it meant. She'd seen too many little ones fade like that on the trail west. By now, the mud clung to her skirts like chains. She sank to her knees in the middle of the street and wept. No tears came. Her body had none left to give. Her eyes caught a group of voices rising across the road, near the auction shed now used for livestock and freight. The gas lamps hissed in the rain, casting a sickly yellow light. A brothel madam in a fur-trimmed coat stood laughing with a large, red-faced landowner, both smoking cigars and counting coin from a small box. A white girl, barely 16, stood nearby, eyes hollow, freshly bought. Sarah stared. She didn't want to look, but the image held her. Money exchange, contracts passed, a girl's life measured in silver. She didn't feel herself walk over, didn't feel the shame anymore. She stood in the circle of light, wet, trembling, her baby's breath weak against her chest. "I'll do it," she said. The voices fell silent. The madam turned, slowly raising a manicured brow. "Excuse me?" Sarah's jaw clenched. "I'll sell myself. For coin, just enough for milk and medicine." Laughter burst out of the man beside the madam. Lord Almighty, even the colored ones offering themselves now. But the madam didn't laugh. She stepped forward, looking Sarah over like she was inspecting a piece of meat. She tilted her head. "You ain't much, but there's always a market for desperation," she said. "One night's worth, maybe. Half price if the baby dies on you." Sarah said nothing. She couldn't. Her heart had already gone quiet inside her. The madam reached into her purse and counted out coins, slow and deliberate. She made sure everyone nearby saw. The crowd began to gather. Drunken men, curious women. Laughter and crude comments bloomed like weeds in the night. She's selling herself for a jug of milk. Hell, world's gone mad. Ain't no shame, someone muttered. World's full of hungry mouths. The madam raised her hand to hand Sarah the coin. Don't. The voice was rough. Gravel dragged over whiskey and war. It came from the edge of the crowd. A man stepped forward. Tall, broad shoulders under a soaked oilskin coat. A gray hat tilted low over eyes that didn't blink. Mud clung to his boots like bloodstains. Cole Hardin. The cattleman had been leaning against a hitching post, nursing a bottle, watching quiet like a wolf in tall grass. Now he stepped into the circle. He looked at Sarah first, then at the madam's outstretched hand. She ain't yours, he said. The madam scowled. You want her? You pay. Fair price. I already made the offer. Cole tossed a small pouch onto the ground at her feet. The weight of it hit with a jingle that silenced every whisper. Double what you asked, he said, voice flat. And she don't work for you. The madam hesitated, then scoffed. You're a damn fool, Hardin. She'll run off the first chance she gets. Then that's her choice. He stepped to Sarah and extended a hand. She stared at it, stunned. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Cole didn't repeat the offer, just waited. After a long moment, Sarah stepped forward. Her legs nearly gave, but she stood. Cole took her gently by the arm and led her away, the crowd parting like the Red Sea. Behind them, voices murmured, curiosity blooming. Why'd he do it? What's he want with her? Sarah didn't know either. She dared a glance up at him as they reached his horse-drawn wagon. His jaw was stubbled, scar just visible beneath his collar. He didn't speak, just helped her up with one arm, then climbed in beside her. The wagon rolled out into the rain. Ella stirred in Sarah's arms. Still breathing, still warm. Sarah closed her eyes, and for the first time in days, let herself breathe too. Not because she was safe. She wasn't. But because someone, somehow, had given her one more night. And one more night might be enough. The wind cut like a blade across the open plain, but Cole Hardin didn't flinch. He sat tall in the driver's seat, reins in one gloved hand, his coat buttoned high against the early frost. The rain had passed, but a brutal cold had taken its place. Unnatural for the season, even for Louisiana. Behind him, the road vanished into endless marsh and timber. Ahead, the land stretched wider and emptier with each mile. Beside him, Sarah sat stiffly, one hand clutched around her baby, the other bracing herself against the side of the wagon. Ella's breathing was shallow, but steadier than before. The laudanum and milk Cole had bought in silence that morning had kept the fever from tipping into the grave. For now, Sarah hadn't spoken much since he bought her freedom, or something like it. She didn't know the terms, didn't trust the man. He hadn't touched her, hadn't looked at her the way other white men sometimes did. That made her more nervous, not less. He was a quiet kind of danger, one born of war and solitude. Cole Hardin had once worn gray. The faded corner of a Confederate flag was stitched inside his saddlebags, a relic he hadn't yet burned, though the meaning of it died with the war. He didn't talk about the things he'd done, but it hung around him like the weight of a loaded rifle. He hadn't gone home after the surrender. Home was gone, burned to cinders, his brothers buried on battlefields, and the woman he loved buried in a different kind of silence. So he went west, built fences, bought cattle, worked hard and talked little. He didn't owe anyone kindness, least of all a black woman and her half-dead child. And yet here they were. The wagon bounced as it crossed a shallow ravine. Sarah clutched Ella tighter. The child stirred, then coughed. A wet, rasping sound. Sarah turned her face to the wind, hiding her fear. That night, they camped beneath a lean-to made of canvas and pine branches. Cole chopped wood. Sarah started the fire. Neither spoke. When Ella whimpered, Sarah rocked her gently and hummed to him from long ago, one her mother sang back on the plantation in Mississippi. Cole paused mid-swing and listened, though he pretended not to. Later, as Sarah laid the child down beside the fire, she glanced toward Cole's bedroll on the far side of camp. She expected him to nod, to gesture, to demand, but he just stared into the flames. After a moment, he stood, walked to the wagon, and returned with a folded blanket and a tin of dried beans. He set them by her feet, without a word, then went back to his side. The next morning, frost crusted the edges of the grass. The trees glistened silver under a hard sky. Sarah woke before dawn and quietly stepped away from camp. Cradling Ella, she didn't intend to steal, just to leave. But Cole was already saddling the horses. He saw her, said nothing. She didn't run. Instead, she sat back down and wept silently into the folds of her shawl while Ella slept in her lap. Days passed. The road grew harder. Prairie turned to forest. Wolves howled in the distance some nights, close enough to keep them awake. They crossed rivers where water rose past their knees, threatening to pull the wagon and all its contents under. At one crossing, the current swept the wheel off course. The wagon lurched. Sarah screamed as Ella's basket tipped. Cole dove in without hesitation, arms like iron. He caught the baby just as the current tried to take her. They both came up soaked, shivering, breathless, but alive. That night, Sarah sat by the fire while Cole dried his coat. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. He didn't answer. She didn't expect him to. By the third week, they had traveled farther west than Sarah had ever imagined going. No towns, no signs, just land and sky, and silence. One night, Sarah broke. The fire was low, wind whispering through the pines. She stared into the coals, eyes distant. "My husband," she said, barely audible. His name was Jonah. He was kind, laughed easy, never raised his hand to me. Cole glanced up. "They lynch him in Missouri," she continued, voice cracking. "He tried to steal a sack of flour. For me. And Ella." Her hands clenched the blanket. "They beat him, then dragged him through town like a dog. Left his body hanging where children could see." The fire crackled. She blinked hard. "I used to think God watched over good ones, but he didn't watch over Jonah." Cole stood and added more wood to the fire. He didn't speak, just sat beside her, close but not touching. After a long silence, he reached into his coat and rolled up his sleeve. Scars, dozens of them, some fresh, some faded. A bullet wound near his shoulder. Knife gashes across his forearm. He said nothing, but she understood. He'd been cut too, by life, by war, by choices he didn't speak aloud. That unspoken exchange, the rawness of it, did more than hours of talking ever could. By morning, the cold had worsened. Game grew scarcer. They were living off jerky and canned beans now. Cole hunted what he could, but the animals had gone quiet. Then, in the shadows of the Red River Valley, they met a man. Or rather, he found them. The figure stepped from the tree line like smoke, bow slung over one shoulder, face painted in dull earth tones. His horse made no sound. His eyes locked on Sarah first, then Cole. He didn't speak for a while. Cole reached slowly for his rifle. "I wouldn't," the man said in perfect English. Sarah held Ella tighter. The man's name was Wyatt, a Comanche tracker. He'd been shadowing them for days, watching. He didn't like what he saw. A white man riding with a black woman through Comanche land? Unusual, he said, circling their camp. And dangerous. Cole's jaw tightened. "We're passing through." Wyatt looked at Sarah. "You a slave?" "No," Sarah said firmly. "He paid for me, but he didn't buy me." Wyatt squinted. Stranger still. He stayed that night, silent and watchful. He shared dried rabbit and a small pouch of herbs for Ella's cough. Cole didn't protest. In the days that followed, Wyatt didn't leave. He walked ahead of the wagon some mornings, checking tracks, listening to wind. He pointed out the safest paths, the water sources, the signs of wolves or worse. At night, he told no stories but sat near the fire with quiet dignity. Sarah noticed the way he watched her, not with lust, not with pity, with curiosity. One night, when Cole was tending the horses, Wyatt approached. "You think you're safe with him?" he asked her plainly. "I don't know what I am," she said honestly. He nodded, as if that were the only answer that mattered. That same night, wolves came. 6 of them, silent until the first lunged. Teeth flashed. Sarah screamed. Cole fired one shot. Missed. Wyatt moved like lightning. Arrow through her throat, blade in hand before the second wolf hit the ground. Cole wrestled one back with the butt of his rifle. Blood splattered the snow. Then silence. When it ended, 3 wolves lay dead. The others fled into the night. Sarah clutched Ella, heart pounding. Wyatt stood over the bodies. "They'll come back. Next time, more." Cole met his eyes. "Then we move." The next morning, they did. The wagon rolled westward again, flanked now by 2 people who had once been strangers. None of them spoke of loyalty or trust. They just kept walking. But something had changed, not with words. In the way Sarah passed Cole the water first. In the way Wyatt handed Sarah his knife when he left the scout. In the way Ella reached for Cole's gloved finger and didn't cry. Trust wasn't spoken out loud on the frontier. It was built in silence, across miles of hardship and firelight, in looks and gestures and quiet nights survived together. And for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt something strange. Not safety. Not yet, but the beginning of something close. The snow began to fall quietly, soft as ash, cloaking the trees in silence. Their camp nestled beneath a ridge, smoke curling from a low-burning fire, the wagon draped with pine boughs for warmth. Sarah stirred the pot gently, the smell of rabbit stew mixing with the wood smoke. Ella slept beside her, cheeks flushed pink from the cold but no longer fevered. Cole sharpened a blade under the canvas lean-to, and Wyatt, ever watchful, was scouting the edge of the woods. The stillness cracked when the horses screamed. 3 of them came out of the dark. Bandits. One tall, bearded, with a pistol raised and a scar splitting his lip. Another, smaller but wiry, held a rope in one hand. The third, a boy no older than 18, stood back with a rifle he clearly didn't know how to use. Sarah froze. "Well, hell," the scar man said, grinning. "Didn't expect to find treasure way out here." His eyes didn't look at the food, or the horses. They looked at her. Cole moved instinctively, reaching for his sidearm, but a shot rang out, missed by inches. He dove behind the wagon, dragging Sarah down with him, covering Ella with his coat. The snow flurried in the sudden movement. "We don't want no blood," the scarred one shouted. "Just the woman. You give her up and we walk away." Sarah's breath came fast. Ella whimpered beneath the coat. "Let me take her," she whispered to Cole. "I'll lead them off. You circle behind." "No." But she was already moving. She slipped into the trees, carrying Ella's blanket with her, then left it beneath a pine as bait. She darted into the thickets beyond. The bandits gave chase. Cole didn't hesitate. He turned to Wyatt, who had returned to the edge of the clearing, arrow knocked. "She's headed east," Cole said. "Cut left flank M." Wyatt vanished into the trees. Snow swallowed the sounds, muffling everything except the snap of twigs and the occasional panting breath. Torches bobbed like distant stars. Sarah ran till her legs gave out. She stumbled into a ravine, hiding behind a fallen log. Footsteps crunched overhead. "You ain't gonna run far, girl," one of the men called. "We just want a little fun. You know how it goes." She bit her knuckle to keep from sobbing. Suddenly, an arrow hissed through the dark. A scream. The boy with the rifle fell backward, the torch rolling from his hand. Wyatt melted from the shadows, blade gleaming. The taller man swung wildly. Cole tackled him from behind, fists slamming against ribs, gun dropping into the snow. They fought like wolves. No words. No honor. Just survival. Sarah watched from the trees, breath caught in her throat. One of the bandits reached for her, a final, desperate lunge. Cole shoved her out of the way. The bullet caught him in the side. He dropped hard. The last bandit fell moments later, an arrow in his throat. Silence again, except for the snowfall. Sarah ran to Cole's side, his coat soaked red. "Don't move," she whispered. tearing cloth to press against the wound. He grimaced. Ain't planning to dance. His fingers found hers. Weak, calloused. That night, she didn't sleep. She fed the fire, tended his wound, and sang to Ella while Cole drifted in and out of pain. By morning, the bleeding slowed. She sat beside him, rubbing his hand gently, warming it in hers. I thought you were going to die, she said softly. I've been dead before, he rasped. Didn't stick. She looked at him, really looked, and asked why. Why what? Why'd you buy me? He turned his head, meeting her eyes. I didn't buy you, he said. I stopped him from doing it. Her lip trembled. I didn't know what to expect from you, she admitted. I thought you'd take. I thought I would too, he said quietly. But then I saw your eyes. And the baby. And I knew. If I didn't do something right then, I never would again. Tears welled in her eyes. She reached for his hand and kissed it, not out of obligation, but choice. The spring thaw came slowly, washing the snow from the hills. Wildflowers pushed through frozen earth. And with the passing months, a new rhythm took root. A small cabin rose from the ground on a bluff above a creek. Its beams were rough-hewn, roof pitched low, smoke curling from a chimney. Inside, laughter echoed, not loud but real. Ella crawled across the wooden floor, clutching a carved wooden horse that Cole had shaped with his own scar hands. Sarah stood by the garden rose, sleeves rolled, fingers dark with soil. Cole joined her with a pail of water, pausing to kiss her shoulder. They never spoke about love in public, not in a world that would punish them for it. But they lived it, in each plank nailed, in each storm weathered, in the simple act of sharing space and breath and silence. One afternoon, Wyatt appeared at the edge of the woods. He didn't say much, just tied his horse, shared a meal, and watched Ella toddle after chicken. When it came time to leave, he looked at Sarah, then at Cole. He nodded once, and was gone. Sarah watched him disappear into the trees. She picked up Ella, holding her close, and looked out across the fields they had carved into something like peace. Her voice drifted out, quiet but steady. He didn't save me. He gave me the choice to save myself. Fade to black. Asterisk voice over asterisk. Stories like Sarah's aren't written in history books, but they lived beneath every scar, in every quiet act of defiance. If this tale moved you, help keep her memory alive. Like, comment, and subscribe for more forgotten stories of resilience, sacrifice, and unexpected love.